WeatherScope.
It's a rainy night from the southeast through the Great Lakes region, and there are still a few snowflakes flying around. Just a few. Good evening to you, and welcome to this edition of WeatherScope. We're glad you joined us. I'm Bob Stokes.
And I'm Warren Madden. Another storm system is lurking. I do mean lurking off the California coast. We'll take a look at that. But first, let's get a look at the rain and the snowmaker in the central U.S. The snowfall now stopped at Madison, Wisconsin. The snow came down earlier this morning, about 4 inches of snow blanketing the ground as a result. But don't get too complacent, residents of Madison. More light snow on the way as we head into the day on your Thursday. Here's the situation. We do have a couple of stories that I'm going to be telling you about. The first one is this swath of rain and snow stretching from the Great Lakes all the way to the Gulf. The second is this little storm, but from little storms and little cold fronts come lots of cold air. I'll be back to that in just a couple of minutes, but let's start off here with our one storm that's producing the wide swath. You can still see some snow here painted on across the UP of Michigan, coming into northern Wisconsin, and even into the northern lower peninsula of Michigan. Right now, we're seeing some of that rain and snow moving out of the picture, though, heading up in toward Ontario, but still seeing some snow at Rhinelander and Wausau, Wisconsin. Marquette, you're seeing some snow, also Traverse City, Michigan. Detroit looks like things calming down for you as the rains head across into Ontario, but farther to the south, some of that rain still around. You can still see a pretty distinct line here from northeastern Ohio coming down in through close into Chillicothe, coming down in toward the Lexington area. And the Cleveland area, you've been seeing rain, but it looks like you're about to get a break here, at least for a little while. You're at the back edge now to your east, but some heavier rain coming through Youngstown now, reaching up in toward Erie and Jamestown, New York, and Pittsburgh. You'll be seeing some of this rain as well. And then as time goes on, we'll start seeing some colder air come down, and a bit of lake effect snow perhaps is in your future. We'll talk about that in just a minute or two. Let's head to the southeast now, where snow, of course, not a problem, but rain also a problem, ranging here from the Great Smokies, coming down in towards South Georgia and reaching across the Florida Panhandle. We started off into the Mid-Atlantic and the Carolinas around Chesapeake Bay. Washington, D.C., you're seeing some rain, Richmond, and the rain moving eastward, so get ready heading in toward Norfolk and coming down toward Charleston, South Carolina. You'll be seeing more rain coming into the picture. But Atlanta, things look to be drying out for you. You can see the rain now receding, so perhaps tomorrow morning's commute will be a lot nicer than your evening commute home was this evening, where it was quite messy. But farther to the south, looks like Jacksonville, you're still in the soup, and more rain, darker greens and reds here, not reds, but yellows, perhaps some embedded thunderstorms rumbling here off the Florida coast out in the northeastern Gulf. Could be coming across in toward the Ocala area and heading up in toward Gainesville and Jacksonville and Valdosta over the next couple of hours. Now let's go to story number 2. That's this little spin right here. It looks pretty innocuous, but notice the movement of the clouds to the south here. That's that cold air moving southward. Leading edge of it, producing some snow around Minot and Grand Forks, heading down toward Aberdeen, South Dakota. And it's cold. Boy, is it cold. We're already dropping into the 20s here in current temperatures here in the northern plains. Toss in the wind chill, and we're talking about single digits and even below zero here at Lander, Wyoming. And the cold air will be flowing pretty far south over the next couple of days. We'll talk about that in the forecast. Let's check out what's happening along the west coast now. Here's Bob.
Well, thanks a lot, Warren. That is a big temperature change you were talking about. A strong weather system is brewing off the California coast. Northern California is already feeling the effects. Now, rain moved through the San Francisco Bay Area this afternoon and evening, and tonight the rain is tapered off for the most part, but a sprinkle here or there still coming down. You can expect much of the same tomorrow, some light rain, but the heavier rain won't move in until late tomorrow night, Thursday night after midnight. Temperatures in the upper 50s and low 60s now in the greater Bay Area. Let's check out the rain right now. We've got the bigger system still offshore, but some impulses are moving in ahead of it around the southern periphery of the big low, and then to the east of it we have some energy coming in, and so Pacific moisture flowing from south to north across the central coast of California, getting into the San Francisco Bay Area. Although right now San Francisco, at the official reporting station, simply mostly cloudy with an easterly wind. You can see the rain all the way up to the Columbia River Gorge, but here's what what's keeping it from charging eastward. We have a block, an upper level high, so when the energy or the rain moves in, it's wanting to go northward because this is blocking it. But watch what happens Friday. The jet flattens somewhat, and as it does so, it's going to allow that bigger upper level disturbance to come in. What does that upper level disturbance look like? Here it is. You can see it's pretty big. That cyclonic flow or counterclockwise flow in the northern hemisphere. And you can see the energy, this is the southern end of it. It gets going here, then moves to the east of it, and that's what's happened today and this evening for San Francisco in terms of the wet weather around Sausalito, Hayward, California, and around the Golden Gate Bridge. Wet weather, but again, that's tapered off somewhat, although the surrounding areas still seeing some wet weather. But that's going to be charging in Friday and Saturday. But here's what's coming in ahead of it, that south to north flow. Chico getting wet, Redding getting wet, Mount Shasta reporting some light rain right now, and the Greater Bay Area. Although again, in downtown San Francisco, it is tapered off somewhat, and for most of Oakland. But be careful, anywhere along the Sacramento Valley, it's still wet now, and that wet weather flowing on up into the coastline of Oregon and getting into the southern suburbs of Portland. Temperature-wise, 48 in Seattle, still mild though in San Francisco, 57 degrees, as well as Los Angeles, 62 in San Diego, and let's visit Salt Lake City with a jacket, where it's 33 degrees. What's the word on El Nino? Warren has it here.
It's the ocean and atmosphere working together that makes El Nino such a force for climate change. Jim Cantore explains in tonight's El Nino Focus.
In normal non-El Nino years, the surface of the Pacific Ocean along the coast of South America is cool, about 8 degrees cooler than the surface in the western Pacific. That's because of the trade winds. The prevailing trade winds in this part of the world are from east to west, and those winds push the ocean's surface along with them. That piles warm water up in the western Pacific. Sea level is about 1.5 feet higher near Indonesia than at Ecuador. And because the surface water is moved west, the cold water from deeper levels rises toward the surface off South America, sometimes to within 50 meters. That's called upwelling, and it's responsible for the cold surface temperatures. But in an El Nino, the trade winds diminish, and in some cases actually reverse. Without the trade winds, upwelling diminishes. The cold water from the depths remains far below the surface, and the surface warms. So it is this relationship between the wind and the ocean that causes the changes we know as El Nino. I'm Jim Cantore, the Weather Channel.
Join us every night for El Nino Focus, but now let's take a look at a very chilly forecast.
Indeed, Warren, an Arctic air mass is breaking loose. We call it the Canadian chill, and it's charging southward. The leading edge of it, an Arctic front. About here now, behind it, some of the coldest air of the season, and because of the jet stream this far south, it's going to allow that cold air to go all the way to the south and spread eastward as we go into late tomorrow. You're going to feel it. You're going to know a big change has occurred in the temperatures, and so when you step outside for that Christmas shopping, you'll need that heavy coat, perhaps the gloves, as that cold air encompasses much of the United States east of the Rockies. Well, here we go into tomorrow morning. We've got snow flying across the Great Lakes. Here's the front I was talking about. To the north of it, some cold air. You can see the blustery northerly winds coming in. Some wet weather still hanging around the Bay Area tomorrow, but it's going to be mainly scattered and on the light to moderate side at the heaviest. It's tomorrow night when it becomes heavier. This front that brought the mess to commuters, to afternoon commuters in Atlanta, taking that rain toward the coastline of the southeast. You can see that wintry mix in the Adirondacks tomorrow morning, sticking around through midday. The lake effect snow machine, yes, someone's going to punch that button and turn it back on. The puncher, this Arctic air. As it flows across the lakes, we're going to see the lake effect snow kick in again, and that means we could see potentially several inches on those favored lake effect snow belt areas. You know where I'm talking about, Watertown and Jamestown, New York, and Benton Harbor and Marquette. Stay tuned to the Weather Channel, that lake effect snow in your forecast. And we've got rain, Jacksonville, St. Augustine, and also the California coast. There's a look at the snow across Marquette, Michigan, getting into the northeast, so please be mindful, motorists. And there's the lows tonight. Heaters feeling good in the western part of Nebraska and getting into Grand Junction, Colorado tonight. Look at those lows, very cold. And there's the highs tomorrow. The teens, there's that Arctic air coming down. Highs only in the teens in the northern part of North Dakota, but relatively mild in the south. 60s in Austin and San Antonio, Texas. We're finding some 70s sticking around in Orlando, getting down to Dade and Broward counties. What a contrast to those teens in the north, Warren.
Midwesterners see a break in the snowy condition, but who's next in for a blast of winter weather?
Well, that's ahead on Travel-Wise after your local forecast.
When you're on the go, get the Weather Channel forecast from these sources. It's the same reliable information you get from us on TV, prepared by our 80 meteorologists. And now your local forecast. WeatherScope.
of snow around the upper Great Lakes, but